Welcome to the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're speaking with Taylor Barriger. Taylor is one of the executive pastors at Caminodevida in Lima, Peru, where he leads the creative team and strategic planning. Lean in as Taylor shares about the importance of creativity in ministry and being relevant to today's generation. Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AVAIL podcast, where we dive into the art of leadership. The reason we do this is because we want to provide resources that are helpful, that are relevant, that are practical for all you leaders out there. And we never disappoint. We have amazing leaders, pastors, marketplace leaders, industry. This is the best place to connect if you want to grow in your leadership and you want to take it to another level. Today, we have the privilege of connecting with a very dear friend of mine, somebody that I've just seen God do great things with. And we're talking about Pastor Taylor Barriger. He's one of the pastors of Caminodevida, which means way of life. This is a church in Lima, Peru. We're going to talk a little bit about his story, how he got there, and a little bit of just his leadership journey. Taylor, for me, it's an honor. You're a dear friend. You and your family are dear friends of ours here at Vertical Church. And I can't wait for all of our AVAIL audience to get to know you. How you doing today?
Oh man, Verge, love you, miss you. I wish we lived in the same city. It's so thankful to be here. Thankful just to have this chance to talk what we geek about, right? We geek about church and leadership and all that surrounds those concepts. And so just who else is better to talk to than you about this? And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I had an opportunity to do an AVAIL podcast with your father, Pastor Robert Barriger,
wow.
and that was really awesome. I got a lot of great feedback from that. So before we jump into kind of leadership talk and just what's on our hearts regarding the church ministry leadership, can you just share a little bit? I know some people are going to be leaning in, kind of hearing a little bit about you. Hearing about your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, where you are, what you're doing now? I know that could probably be a long conversation, but you can give us kind of the quick version, and then we're going to get into some leadership talk.
Yeah, sure. I was born in San Diego, California when I was 2. My parents moved the whole family to Lima. So that was 1983, August of 1983. I was just about to turn 3 years old, and it was me, my little sister, and my parents. Ever since then, we've been planted in Lima and building a church and it's doing all kinds of things. Now, in the midst of that, I take a little detour, sort of like I consider it a training session. I left home at 15 to go study high school in the U.S., college, seminary, internships. I spent 10 years in the U.S. and then moved back at 25 as a missionary myself. And it's been the wildest, craziest, funnest journey to be able to build the church alongside my parents. And I guess my leadership journey it was pretty clear when I came here that I felt God said, hey, you're not there to build your own thing. You're there to build your pastor's thing, your parents' thing. And that's been my number one job description since then till today. And furthermore is I'm here to just help land my parents' heart into everybody else's heart. And it's been fun. What a privilege.
Yeah, it really is awesome. And for those of you who might be thinking, Lima, Peru, how does this happen? Well, this is a missionary pastor's family that goes to Lima, Peru. And I'll just say this, Caminodevida is really one of the leading churches, I would say in all of Latin America, leading the way in relevant church, in life-giving church. And I'm a witness to it. I can testify to it. So I know this conversation is going to be great, Taylor.
Come on.
Man, I love your heart. I love your family. Your father's actually an overseer for me here at Vertical Church, and really appreciate him. And just the connection we've made throughout these last couple of years has been fun, especially as your heart and your church's heart is to equip leaders. We might even talk a little bit about Haciendo Iglesia. podemos hacer esto en español también. We could do this in Spanish, right?
Lo que tú quieras, whatever flavor of the month, let's do it.
I got you. Well, you know what? Our AVAIL listeners speak mainly English, so we'll stick to English. Now,
Sounds good.
you're a missionary pastor's kid.
Yeah.
And again, my parents weren't missionaries, although they did end up in U.S. from Colombia, but they're pastors, and so I can kind of relate to you there. Did you always know that you were going to end up in ministry? Was there a season where you were like, "There's no way I want to do ministry," or like, "Yes, that's what I want"? How was that?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of trippy. My parents never pushed it on me. I never had a conversation with them of, hey, you are supposed to be a pastor or a missionary or whatever in the future. You're called by God for greatness. No, they'd be like, whatever you want to do, we'll support you. We'll push you forward. So that's why I left for the U.S. to go play sports. That was kind of my main thing, my goal in life. And when I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do, I told my dad, hey, we lost the state championship in high school, my senior year. And I told my dad over some cold slab ice cream, hey, I think I want to be in ministry. It was the first time I ever voiced that in my life. And so and then obviously it's not a straight line to ministry. It's a lot of ups and downs, and so many things happen there. But I'm the first one surprised that I get to do what I do. I never wanted to be a speaker. I love to be behind the scenes, but lately I find myself preaching more than behind the scenes. It's fun. I'm thankful for it. But creativity, the whole creative team, that's where I'd rather be. That's where I'm a pig in the mud, you know? And but I found like I can just build a team instead and live vicariously through them, and it's been great.
Cool. Yeah, that's your sweet spot. You know, I know that this isn't always an easy question to answer, because when you're leading in the church, you got your hands everywhere. But what would you say is kind of your primary role, or your primary responsibilities at Caminodevida right now? And then what are you most passionate about in what you do?
Yeah, I think completely dovetails into one another. My main role is to, how to say this? I always think about, like, say, Jesus, the disciples that got to spend time with Jesus, here's words instead of read them from Matthew or Luke. Those who got to see him and hear him
they were in the room.
Yeah, had a special privilege. Like, hey, I was there, I heard it. I was in the room. And I think with my job is I want to try to get more people in the room with my parents. I want there to be people years down the line saying, hey, I was there in the room with Pastor Robert said that. I heard Pastor Karen say that. And I think that benefits the church, because we're building a church that will be stronger in 100 years than it is today. Yeah. And we need more people in the room. So a big part of my job is to bridge that gap and bring more people in the room. And I'm deeply passionate about that. And so I think too much of leadership ends up being hierarchical, right. And it's easy to do. The bureaucracy is so easy to establish and run with the game plan. But if we can be a little messy sometimes and maybe have too many people in the room, I'd rather that than too few people in the room.
It's cool that you bring that up. I love this. I love this perspective, Taylor, because I think it's that even what you just said right now, it could seem a little countercultural, even counterintuitive. You're saying that you have a passion for getting more people in the room. You're clearly a leader, a pastor who has a great calling on your life, and God is, I would venture to say, just beginning to scratch the surface on what everything He has for you. But you have this clarity on, man, I want to lift up, as Dr. Sam Chan from our family in AVAIL here would say, I want to be a ladder holder, for my father. Can you speak to that a little bit and how important that is?
Oh man, 1,000%. We've all read this. We've all read the story of the. It's called The Tale of Three Monarchs, right? Which is the example with Saul, David, and Absalom, sorry, and how those three generations, there's a lot of confusion between each other. And I think David's heart is the beautiful heart, where Absalom thought David was a Saul, and Saul thought David was an Absalom. And I think so much of the younger generation ends up being more of an Absalom kind of a spirit, where it's like, hey, this old man is not letting me do what I want to do, and we stand at the door at the gate and just convincing people, hey, I could do it better, and probably so in some instances, but that's not the right heart. And so, what's just the elephant in the room is, hey, I'm the son, the oldest. I'll probably take the ministry if I don't die in an airplane in a few months, right? Who knows? But the thing is, my parents are still the ones in authority. They're still the ones in leadership. And so everything has to build towards them. And a long time ago, I had this inside battle. Well, what if what I build towards my parents doesn't fit me when it's my turn?
Sure.
And the answer clearly is, it's not up to you. We've been faith believing Christians. We believe that if it's on me later on, like it's God's responsibility to straighten the path and make that fit for me. Yeah. So if I start kind of building towards myself while they're in leadership, I end up becoming an Absalom, and kind of subverting their leadership. So if I end up being the pastor, who knows? But I also want people building towards the same goal and the same leadership instead of this weird thing happening underneath. And I think that's the spirit of our house, of our team. We all hold it loosely and just push in the same direction. I think we're better for it.
Yeah, that's a good word. And undeniably and arguably, and I think your parents will be the first ones to recognize and agree with me on this. You could be pastoring a church right now. You could be pastoring this church, any church. You could plant a church, but you're clear on the calling that God's placed on your life. Yeah,
and I'll even, man, we're going down this rabbit trail. This is good. There's so, what's the hurry, right? Just to have another acronym by my name, and so. I could go, if I was a pastor now, I could go up to the church and say, hey, church, letter A is the best option for us. And they'll go, hey, yeah, you're 40. Where does it say that in the Bible? Can you prove it? Is that the best idea? But working with my dad, I go, hey, Dad, what do you think about letter A? He goes, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. He goes, hey, church, letter A. They'll be like, yes, letter A is the best thing since sliced bread. Preach it, And so why can't we leverage each other? Why can't we truly just tackle this together? And scripture is clear. One can do a lot less than two. And I think with that, I'm trying to bring more sons up and more daughters up. Yeah. And so it's not just two that my prayer is that we have 10, 15, 50 that have that capacity, and I don't know, what's the hurry for transition?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I love that. I love this. I think some leaders needed to hear this today or on this podcast, whenever they listen to this or watching to this. I think some people needed to hear this, Taylor. So this is really good. I really like this. Okay. So there's been a few conferences that we've been at together, whether it's teaching at together, growing together, learning together. One of the things that I've heard you talk about throughout the years, and obviously we talk about this in our churches, right, is the importance of, as a church, being relevant, right? Can you expand on the idea or the concept of being relevant as the church? What does it mean to be a relevant church in today's culture?
Yeah, sadly, it's a word that's been misconstrued, right? It's been misconstrued to be thought as this is cool, this is youthful, modern, and we confuse that with lights, and a shorter liturgy. But truth be said, true relevance is as simple as scratch the itch. That's it. And what does irrelevance mean? It's your friend trying to scratch your back but missing the itch. It's probably the worst feeling in the world. Like, no, that's not where it itches. And I think, sadly, church in general, not there's some great churches that are scratching the itch, but in general, historically, we've always missed that itch. And why? Because the itch keeps moving. The itch keeps shifting. Yesterday's itch is not today's itch. And so if we're able to stay connected with people and understand where it's itching, I think we can be relevant in a very powerful way.
Yeah, that's good. I know one of the things that I think we both have a passion for, our churches have a passion for, and even the network that you guys have initiated called Haciendo Iglesia, which translates to doing church, right? Yeah. Where you guys have built, thanks to your father's leadership and the extension of everybody there at Caminodevida, this network of churches and pastors throughout Latin America, where you guys are really helping them to grow, right? To break growth barriers, to understand this issue of being relevant and what it really means in that process. And it might look a little different culturally in Latin America than it does maybe in Europe, or here in the States, but ultimately it's the same issue, right? It's the church being there, but maybe not having the same impact that it could have or should have on the lives, on the community of people. Can you speak to that a little bit about just kind of what you've seen in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I think we all get into doing church for the same reason. We love people. We love the cause. We love why we're doing what we're doing. But I think we get caught up in the mechanics of it. And we get caught up in this is how it should be done instead of why we're doing what we're doing. Right. And I don't know. There's like, for example, the pandemic hit us all in the same way. It was fascinating to watch how the biggest mega church and the smallest church all were at the same exact level. It is phenomenal. I loved it on that end. But I remember being really frustrated because in Lima, it hit us hard, and we went into a strict quarantine for months, where literally we did remote church for a year and 3 months. Completely remote. This is my setup for Sundays, preaching. And I remember talking to a mutual friend, Lucas Lays, one day, and kind of just venting. I was like, it's really frustrating. I'm seeing all these churches in the U.S. They're kind of sort of open, and they're doing church production from their studio or their auditorium. They're using the nice 4K cameras. I'm using a cell phone, and my internet's shoddy, and they're lossless. And I'm like, this is horrible. We can't be excellent. And he goes, wait, Taylor. That's not relevant to people. I mean, how often are you just channel surfing through Netflix and you can't find something to connect to, but it's all excellently produced. All is beautiful. Right. All is amazing. What the people need, they don't need more perfect productions. They need more connection.
That's good.
And it just hit me hard. It's like, okay, if I can connect with people, it doesn't matter if it's 720 or 1080 or 4K, 8K. It doesn't. All those parameters, they're fun. I love those things, but they don't. Sure. If it's not connecting with people, we're losing. And I think being able to help pastors and churches throughout the continent connect with people better, man, I get giddy about that. That's fun, and it really just helps focus where the end zone is.
Yeah, that's good. Everything you're talking about has a direct connection and correlation to leadership, right? Because it takes leadership to face adversities and challenges like we've faced, right? In this season, it takes leadership to come up with solutions to the problems and strategies, right? Let's talk a little bit about, I know you wrote your first book, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. La Iglesia, your first book is in Spanish only at this point, because I've been spoken in Protestant. What about English? La Iglesia Creativa, which translates to the creative church. What's the heart behind why you wrote this book and why you wanted to get it out there? Yeah,
I'm the last person I would ever believe in myself doing a book. I'm dyslexic. I got I'm ADHD to the nth degree. I got thrown out of seminary for bad grades. So it's funny. I got asked, hey, Taylor, I think you got to do a book on creativity. And my immediate answer was no. I'm helping push my dad to do books. I want to push their content forward, and not mine, not yet, maybe down the road. And I remember I was in the barbershop and I put my phone away and I just sat back and I just felt this prodding like, hey, what if you would write a book? What would you write about? And they told me, hey, the Creative Church, that'll be the title. So I was like, okay, let's do chapters. What chapter titles? And I came up within like 5 minutes, 22 chapter titles.
Wow.
And then I just felt this deep conviction, like, hey, if I don't write this, someone else will write it, and I'll be a terrible steward of what God's given me. So the main premise is what is creativity? Creativity is not synonymous with being more artsy or artful. You know, you can be artsy and creative, but they're not one and the same. So so if that's so, what is creativity? Creativity is the ability to solve problems. And so if we get to that same level, a plumber can be creative, an electrician, a carpenter, they can be very creative. A bus driver can be creative. And I think it really frees us to see the world in a different light. Okay, I want to be somebody who brings solutions. And a lot of times we see the problem, but we point our finger at the problems and at somebody else for not being the solution to the problem. But I love what Andy Stanley says in Visioneering. He says, hey, if you see a problem, you qualify for a vision. And I think a lot of times God lets us see a problem so that we can be that creative agent to bring a solution. And the book is around that and church. And it's a fun concept.
That's cool. I think it's a good take on, I guess, an angle that's maybe not so written about, right? It's kind of an angle, there's a lot of leadership and there's ministry and there's, spiritual, disciplines and there's, systems, but from the angle of La Iglesia Creativa, the creative church. And I think if we're Taylor, I think if we're honest, without any desire or intention to put anything or anybody down, but I think the church has maybe lost creativity or maybe never really leveraged it to the level that it can be leveraged. And when you look at ministry in the marketplace, or when you look at, church and other places and experiences, right? Why is that? Why do you think there's creativity lacking?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really frustrating. I don't know. You can look at a good example is Moses, right? And then Joshua. The miracles God did for Moses were spectacular. The miracles God did for Joshua were spectacular, but they're completely different. And I think a lot of times generationally, we want to try to reproduce the same miracles that happened in the previous generation, whereas God still moves, but completely different. And there are many reasons for that. And I don't think that it's kind of obvious, but I think we caught up in the how of the way it was. And yes, we got to keep the healthy doctrine. Yes, we got to make sure things are set in place. We don't want to just toss out the old wells, right? And have to re-dig them up later. No, just keep using them. But there's a whole opportunity for the church to be the head, not the tail. And we got to keep pushing boundaries. There's a verse that I love. It's Isaiah 2:2. It says, in those days, the mountain of the Lord shall be lifted above all the other mountains. We know what that means. The mountain of the Lord is the church. All the other mountains are the spheres of influence, government, technology, finances, entertainment, all those, right? Education. So it says it will be lifted above all the other spheres of influence, and the world will see it. And the world will say, hey, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, because there they'll teach us how we are supposed to live. What it's talking about is, hey, the church will have the solutions for our lives.
Right.
And I think we get, I don't know, we underestimate the power of the solution that we can bring for society. And I don't know. I believe that promise will be fulfilled, and I want to be part of seeing that being fulfilled.
That's good. One of the things I love when I've had the opportunities to go to Lima, Peru, and worship with you guys there at Caminodevida, man, there's just something so special in the environment, in the atmosphere. It's not by accident. That doesn't happen by accident. There's an intentionality with the leadership, with obviously coming from your parent, from the pastors, from you and the leadership team, and there's something so special. Can you maybe give an example of how you guys have maybe leveraged creativity in these last couple of years, or just maybe so that the ministry leaders that are watching or listening right now can just get a little taste, just an example of how you guys took something maybe that would have never happened, but you thought out of the box, or you try to solve a problem in a new way, and you've seen how the fruit has come because of that.
Yeah, I think transitions are hard, right? When you start an organization, say a church or a business, you start as a mom and pop shop, and it works, and that's the way it's supposed to work. But as you keep growing in size, there's these thresholds you have to keep breaking, and they end up being very practical thresholds. I love how the way Sam Chan says it's painful, and what's your pain tolerance? Because every one of those thresholds you break hurts a lot. Yeah. But it's worth it. And going from a mom and pop shop to maybe a supermarket, there's a lot of transition happening there. And I think, I don't know, with our church, a dumb and simple one that's maybe obvious, but I remember we started classes. Hey, classes for marriage, classes for, I don't know, for men, for women. And it was awesome. We had a class for everything, literally everything. Like I think 46 different courses, and multiple levels of those classes within those courses. And it was a free for all. It was like just an Inca market, whatever, Indian market, and it was frustrating because from the pulpit, everyone would say, "Hey, announce my class starting this Sunday." Okay, announce it, and announce my class. Every weekend we would have 10 announcements of classes starting, and it's as simple as this. In the creative meeting, we were frustrated with how long announcements took in the service. And one of the girls, Daniela, said, "Hey, I'm at college. And at college, we have so many courses, way more than what we have here at church. But it's all organized. And it's organized because we start on the same date and we finish on the same date." What a novel idea. And I said, "Is that even possible? Can we? And so basically, I had to go to all the course leaders and convince them to start on the same day and finish on the same day. And it was like pulling teeth. Like we had classes that would last 22 weeks, and we had to fit them into, we wanted to do 3 semesters, or like a trimester system. And basically, 12 weeks, you got 12 weeks. No, I cannot do it. Well, we have, and it was probably one of the best decisions we ever made, because we're all on the same page. And it's simple things. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right. God has given wisdom openly, and we can just tap into that wisdom and apply it to ourselves. I think would be much better.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's really solving problems in new ways, especially if the old ways haven't been as effective or as strong in working. I think this matters. What do you think? Here's a question, Taylor, for you. What do you think could help churches and pastors develop or increase creativity? Like, what are some pieces of advice you would give to a pastor that says, "Hey, Taylor, we're stuck. We're stuck here. What are some thoughts on increasing creativity?"
That's a huge question. And the answer is a scary answer, to be honest. The answer is we gotta lose that fear of failing. Because we all have this fear of failure. What if it doesn't work? And again, the pandemic. I remember it was chaos, right, for all of us. So it was this complete mayhem. What's happening? Nobody knows. Yep. For churches, how are we going to do this? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? And I remember all our board meetings were just slug matches of, we should do this. No, but what if it doesn't work? Yeah, you're right. We should do some test runs. And I was like, we don't. And then all of a sudden, my dad goes, hey, organizations, governments, businesses die because they're too slow to shift. They're not agile enough. We have to remain agile. And it's like 100%. So this verbiage came out for us that was this: hey, we'd rather fail fast than to get it right slow.
I like that.
And honestly, that phrase just gave us so much freedom, because, okay, we're going to fail fast. We're going to fail on our faces. We're going to fail ugly. We're going to do it as fast as we can, because if we do it fast, we'll learn faster. It's falling forward. And we got to innovate in so many different ways. Now, for that kind of culture, for that kind of mentality to work, the pastor needs to set a culture of, hey, it's okay to fail.
Right.
If you fail, it's not a mark against you. It's actually, you gave it a go. There's points for you. You learned something that the rest of us don't know. And so there's a culture in our church, and I think most churches should have this. Most businesses should have this, a culture of just gung-ho, just make it happen. Failure is not a knock on who you are. It's, you gave it a go. And we learn better that way. How do kids learn? Falling down, right? There's no way to learn how to ride a bike perfectly. No matter how you try, you're going to have a few fender benders when learning how to drive, and that's part of life. Now, pray that it's not a massive catastrophic failure, but that's where leadership creates a safe place for failure. And I think if a church can have that culture, oh man, you'll be the most creative church on the block by far.
Yeah. It seems to me like, and it works the same way in the marketplace and business world. It seems like the organizations that are willing to go first, usually have a position and a voice of influence that, like, all the other ones are then looking at that, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's, technology, whether it's a church, those churches that are willing to say, hey, we don't know, we're learning, we're trying it. We're willing to go for it, even if we don't get it right the first time. But usually those are the organizations that lead the way, and others are looking, which is huge, right?
Which is huge. I mean, if you look at Silicon Valley, we get frustrated, right? Because the new app or the new operating system on our phone comes out and it doesn't all work. And we're like, whatever you use, Android, Apple, this is not what they used to be. No, I think they know that you have to launch something, figure out what works, and iterate on the spot. And the faster you can iterate, the better you'll be, because we can't predict all the possibilities. It's endless. We're not Dr.
All the bugs.
Yeah, we're not Dr. Strange. We can't see all the options of the future. We have to just go for it and be agile enough to navigate through our problems. But we'll get there first. And if we're there first, we can be the leaders that help people with breadcrumbs or whatever get here as well. And so the faster we fail, the more influence we have, the more knowledge we have, and the more creative you'll obviously be.
Yeah, it's funny because, as you said, you said it, I think that thought is scary, especially for leaders that are kind of set in how they've always done it, or who care a lot about, well, what are people going to think and say? It takes courage. It takes courage. Yeah. It takes a willingness to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Especially, it takes discipline for, in this case, a religious leader to not say, God told me, because if God told you and it fails, then you're screwed. And Chris Hodges pushes that all the time, says, hey, don't use God. Don't use that. It's such an easy tool, easy button to use. It's a cheap shot.
Yeah.
Now, if you're certain that God split heaven and earth and told you God said so, then do it, please, by all means. But God gives us creative liberty. Hey, I want you to help people. How? Whichever way you can, go for it. Have fun. And so what that means is, if I can't use the God card anymore to push my initiatives, I have to do the actual legwork. to go to different people, have those conversations, have coffee with people, convince them, maybe have that pushback that says my idea isn't the best idea, but maybe another better idea will come. And here's one of the principles that will help a lot. The first idea is never the best idea. And so the more conversations you have, the more ideas you have, the better the final idea will be. And so the God card always takes us away from the best idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. It takes courage, to take that step out there. And I think that if we're willing to do that, we can take our organizations to places where they've never been before.
Amen.
In a good way, in the process. So I want to kind of transition now specifically in the area of leadership. You've been leading creative teams. You've been leading creative people, and I really believe you've been doing it successfully over these years. Can you give us some tips that can help us as we're leading and engaging and recruiting people? And by the way, we need to recruit people on our teams that are creative, that might not fit the mold of what church staff looked like 20 years ago because of the nature of today's reality. Can you speak a little bit to that, to leading creatives effectively, leading creative teams effectively?
Oof, I'm not going to be popular with this answer. Because there's a headhunter culture in the U.S., right? There's a culture of, hey, I need a new worship leader, so I'll go online and look for a new worship leader. And that works, but that's a short-term solution. And it's, in my opinion, it's kind of a cop-out. And I understand there's exceptions to that rule, obviously, but I believe, and I learned this from Life Church. Craig Rochelle and Bobby Greenwald are geniuses with this. It's 2 Peter, I think it's 2:3. I might get it wrong, but God has given us everything we need today to do what He wants us to do today. So to live, and it says to live godly lives before Him, but also He has equipped us with everything we need today to do what we need today. That includes team. That includes people. Now, the people God has equipped you with today might not look like what you actually need, but eventually, because God is in the business of growing and cultivating. Yeah. So here's an example. I was with some friends in Mexico years back, and they're transitioning the church. It's like a 40-year-old church, transitioning it and doing a great job. And one of the questions was, hey, we're hiring a graphic designer, outsourcing our graphic design. Is that good or bad? And I said, it's neither or. It's sure, why not? But here's the thing. Right. You have great graphic design now, but you might have an 11-year-old kid in your church that has a tendency for creativity, for graphic design, that has no ability. And because you're outsourcing, there's no space or no room to develop that creativity. Right. And so you're forfeiting what God has given you to use. What if, instead of spending that money outsourcing great graphic design, what if can we live with maybe some mediocre graphic design, all right? And just maybe give this kid Photoshop, an Illustrator, and start cultivating something. And you know what? You're going to have some pretty crappy design for a few years, let's be honest. But when that kid is 5 years down the line, when he's 16 years old, he'll be more advanced than all the students leaving Full Sail. Yeah. He'll be more advanced than most people entering into the market when they're 18 or 20. And people will say, how did you get that kid? Where did you hire him? No, God gave him to me. He just didn't look like this when he came. We grew him. And so I think the true solution is let's grow the people that God has given us. And what you'll find is you have less culture problems. You'll have less heart problems. The people around you will be less subversive, right? And you don't have to endure those bad seasons of what if. No, you'll know because they've been with you in the good, in the bad, and your loyalty to that kid will produce loyalty to your leadership. And in the long run, it's just it's a snowball effect. And it's amazing what we can achieve when we just raise people.
That's a great word. That's a great answer there, Taylor. And I want to just second that. I've had that conversation throughout. When my wife and I kind of took the lead of Vertical Church, there was a lot of challenges. And okay, so who is going to help us in this? Who's going to help us in this? And undoubtedly, as I spoke with overseers and mentors, a lot of the times they just said, hey, it's usually going to be a better result when they're sons and daughters of the house, when they're grown from within. That's not to say that it can't work. When you get somebody from outside, it's not to say that, but this is proven to be so true. That when it's a son or daughter of the house, they already have the culture, the DNA's there. The heart, the relationships. It's not something that you have to now train that person, or they have to kind of get it, So I know for some it might be challenging. Like you said, it might not be the answer you want to hear, but I believe that God has placed in our churches and in our organizations that they're there.
Yeah.
We just have to discover them. We have to help to discover them, help develop them, and deploy them into their calling and their ministry. So that's a really good word, Taylor.
Yeah,
that's a good word.
In fact, I think, I don't know, there's a difference between a cook that can follow a recipe and a chef that understands ingredients, and the temptation is, because we're going to hire from the outside, we have to have a manual, this is who we are, this is what we do, detailed. And I love those. So those are awesome. But we end up creating this very superficial culture or organizational structure of people who know how to run the playbook. But what happens when the circumstances change? Like if I'm cooking this beautiful sea bass trout from Chile, and I don't know, but I don't have it now. I'm a cook. Am I going to call the head chef? Hey, what do I do? How do I do it? What if we just have people that know how to do it, that are birthed in the house? They'll go, okay, I don't need that Chilean sea bass. You know what I can do? I can just use, I don't know, flounder. I can use something else that will make it just as good, because it's about the house flavors, not the exact reproducible perfect dish. And I think the reason we have all these playbooks is because we're hiring from the outside, and we end up it works, but it ends up being cookie cutter and kind of just maybe not what God gave you to be,
That's good. Man, this conversation has been really good. Leaders, I hope you're taking notes and taking mental notes here and writing down some things. A little tip came to my mind, Taylor, of something we were talking about right before this, which was the whole, like, when you start something new. I think a lot of people are scared to start something new. Yeah. And I thought of a tip that helped me. So I just want to throw it out there, kind of going back, taking a back step here. I learned this from a mentor who said, hey, when you're going to start something new, you can kind of share, depending on what it is, you can share it with the congregation. Hey, everybody, we're going to be starting something new. Never done this. We're not sure how it's going to work or if it's going to work, but we're going to try it for 3 months. And we're going to, after the third month, we're going to evaluate. We're going to kind of assess where we're at. If it's working, great. If we need to make some adjustments, great. And if it doesn't work, but it kind of, you're kind of preparing, the organization, the church, in this case, people that, to buy in and understand, hey, we're going to try it. And I think that's something that's been helpful for me as a leader, to sometimes be able to just kind of communicate in a way where they understand, hey, this is not like always and forever because we don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever tried that.
Oh, I love that. That's so practical. And it's very helpful because it's freeing, Yeah, it's freeing to just say, hey, let's give it a go. Let's try. Now, on the flip side of that, there's a tension here, right? Mm-hmm. The flip side of that is we have to resist the temptation of evaluating too soon.
Sure.
There's a great example Pastor Willie George gives. It says his two sons, Gabe and Whit, when they're little, did that old experiment of, a bean in a cup with some dirt in it. And one of the boys, their bean grew and the other one never grew. And it's like, what happened? Why is yours not growing? Is it a defective bean? And obviously not. But they go to Gabe, the one who didn't grow, and they go, hey, Gabe, what do you do? Like, what happened? He goes, no, I don't know. I didn't do anything. In fact, I was so worried it wasn't growing that every day I kept going towards to the bean, taking it out of the dirt, looking at it to make sure it was okay, and putting it back. And it's so funny because we do that as organizations. We end up just aborting the program because we're evaluating it too soon instead of letting it grow. Mm-hmm. Oh, but Taylor, what if it grows crooked? Just put another stick next to that bean and help it grow straight. It's not that big of an issue. And so let's have a go at it. Let's try, but let's give it enough time to breathe, to grow, to flourish. And not just evaluate too soon. So it's freedom to evaluate, but also freedom to not evaluate. You know, it might go, a new service in your church might go bad for 6 months. You know, all right, cool. We got 6 months to try it. Let's do it. And I think, I don't know. I think eventually things will get better and grow, and it's fun. I love it.
Yeah. Well, you know, hey, that's part of leadership. That's part of growing. That's part of trying new things. But at least when we try, we're taking those steps. We're being creative. We're bringing solutions that are new and different, that might even give us better results than we could ever imagine. And in the process, you learn and you grow. Great. This is great leadership content. This is great leadership conversation. As we're kind of heading to the final stretch here, Taylor, Maybe quick. These are quick answers. I've never done this before.
Let's
quick answers.
Come on.
Just for fun, just to know Taylor more. What brings you joy?
Coffee.
It's got a special place in your heart, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
All right. What do you enjoy doing with your family?
Oh man, I love watching movies with my family. It actually brings out so many different conversations. You know, it's a fun thing. Also, it doesn't take much effort.
Gotcha. What is one aspect of ministry that's challenging or hard for you?
People, you know, it's the best part. It's the worst part. It's all of it. And definitely people.
Cool. What breaks your heart?
What breaks my heart is people not understanding that God is faithful. That in spite of our unfaithfulness, He remains faithful. You know, 2 Timothy 2:13, He is faithful because He is faithful. You know, and people lived so condemned, and it's just sad to me.
Yeah, I hear you. What are you super excited about right now? What are you pumped about that's coming up?
Oh man, I am so pumped to figure out this new way of doing church. The pandemic's been rough, but it's given us so much. And I don't know, I'm excited for online church. I think it's life-saving for the next generation. And I want to be part of that. Those pioneering this new church. You know.
Cool. Any resource or app that's been helpful for you recently that you want to just recommend?
That
you can think of?
I'm not that tech savvy. I love technology, but my wife is the one. She's the one always showing me a new app, and I'm like, new apps. So in this case, with Squarecast. Love Squarecast. This is awesome.
Squarecast. All right. So here's what I want to do. Any, I know La Iglesia Creativa was your book in Spanish. Is there any project or upcoming kind of special event or anything like that you want to let us know about?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, we're pushing things forward for our church, and it's always fun. Trying to create more content. There's a report that came out by One Hope, which I love. One Hope, Rob Hoskins, what a hero.
Yeah.
But basically he said children pre-pandemic, and they're watching over 7.5 hours of video a day pre-pandemic. Now that's obviously gone up, right? Kids being at home all day. What are we doing as a church to be at least 1 hour, one daily hour of that content? And it really just lights a fire underneath me, just to, hey, we need to be more aggressive in just launching content. And obviously it's not going to be that good, but the most popular content in the world is actually not highly produced content. It's just engaging, And so we got to just, I don't know. So I'm trying to push that forward. Just kids shows and youth shows and all that kind of stuff. So that's fun. It's a long haul project, but I'm excited about it.
So cool. Well, I know the Lord's going to use you and your team to do great things. How can people connect with you? Are you on social media?
Yeah. Social media, Taylor Barriger, on everything. It's good to have an unusual last name. So
Taylor Barriger on all the social media. And if people want to know more about the church, where can they find out more there?
Yeah, you can find us at Caminodevida, like El Camino, the car, the same thing, but Camino without the L, .com. And on social media, we're the same on all our platforms. Caminodevida, just straightforward. And it's all in Spanish, but Google Translate's awesome. So you're most welcome to come and just enjoy.
Yeah. And all you leaders out there, if you know anybody in Lima, Peru, you could send them to check out Caminodevida. If you know any Spanish, Hispanic pastors or churches leaders, you can also give them that website. There's great resources and just a heart to help churches and pastors there. I wanted to mention speaking of resources, the AVAIL Journal. Taylor, the AVAIL Journal is a leadership journal. Actually, I think we've had an article from your dad in here from previous interview that we did. Great leadership content. I'm hoping soon I can send you a bunch over there to Peru because the quality of this journal, it's just a great leadership magazine. Would you agree that having resources that help you grow are important?
Oh man, honestly, I think one of the big failures we have as society is we try to we celebrate originality too much. How do we learn how to write? We copy letters, and eventually we end up with our own handwriting, right? But if we can learn to copy from the best, I think we have a huge start, a good leg up on what we're trying to build. Eventually, you'll have your own flavor, your own flavor profile and style, but just learn from the best. And that resource is incredible.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, if you haven't done so, you can get a free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal. Highly recommend it. Why? Because there's great content from multicultural leaders and pastors from around the States and around the world. It really is going to add another tool in your toolbox for leadership. If you haven't done so, availjournal.com. You could sign up there and claim your free annual subscription. They come out quarterly. You're not going to regret it. Great stuff. Great resources you can get in there. That's
free.
The AVAIL Journal, availjournal.com. Come on. You can't beat that. Free 99. Hey, Taylor, just as we're going to close off here, what's just some final thoughts you want to leave on the hearts of all the leaders?
Oh man, don't do ministry alone, please. I love what it says in Isaiah 40:31. It says, those who wait on the Lord, those who trust in the Lord shall rise up, mount up on eagle's wings, right? Shall run and not fall, shall not faint. Now, the true explanation of that I love is that word trust or wait. In Hebrew, it's kavah. That's the exact word. And that word has a specific meaning or connotation. It means, the imagery it paints is you pick up a bundle of sticks and wrap them together. That's the word kavah. So what that text means is those who gather together and bind themselves together in the Lord shall mount up on eagle's wings, shall run and not faint, shall go and not falter. And I think so often we try to just manage alone. But if I bind myself to people that are going in the same direction, the day that I'm most depressed, I'll have Verge there to keep me up and take me with them. And maybe the day that Verge is down, I'll be there. Maybe if we're both down because we've tied ourselves to others, they'll pick us up. And I think God wants us to finish well, and finishing well is not up to you. It's up to you tying yourself to others that will help you get there. And that would be it, you know?
That's good. That's good. Thanks for sharing that. Man, what a great conversation we've had today with Taylor Barriger, one of the pastors of Caminodevida. Just hearing your heart, Taylor, has been awesome. I hope you guys have just gathered a lot of just leadership nuggets here. It's been a great conversation. Taylor, on behalf of the AVAIL team, on behalf of Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn van Tilborg, and everybody who's part of this AVAIL family, we just honor you, brother. We bless you. We're so proud of what you're doing, even in this challenging time, you know, in right now in South America, things are still not as open as they are here in the States and other parts of the world. But we're cheering you on, brother, and we're really proud of you.
Hey, love you, Verge. Seriously, this has been a blast. I love you. I think you know what? You're good at this too. I'm just saying.
I appreciate that. I love you. The feeling is mutual. And the AVAIL family loves you because they've gotten to know you here. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about what God's doing in your life and in the future as well. So keep rocking, keep pushing, keep leading well how you're doing. And everybody, thanks for connecting with us. Yeah. This is the AVAIL podcast where we talk about the art of leadership. We just connect with great, amazing leaders who are making a difference around the world, and they can help us make a difference in our communities and in our churches, in our ministries, wherever God has us planted. So we'll catch you next time here on the AVAIL podcast. My name is Virgil Sierra, your AVAIL media host. Can't wait to connect next time here on the AVAIL podcast. God bless. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the AVAIL podcast. We hope we've helped to get your creative juices flowing in this conversation with Taylor Barriger. Remember, you can connect with Taylor on social media or connect with Caminodevida by going to Caminodevida.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL media host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.